All right, what's going on YouTube? This is Boxingwave. It's really, really late. It's 3 in the morning here. I just finished watching the Lawrence Coley, Chris Billam-Smith fight. All right. Very controversial fight because of the amount of holding, the amount of knockdowns, and the amount of points that was taken away from Lawrence Okolie. And it's just a mess of a scorecard. I know there was two draws. I believe there was two draws in there, and then there was a draw and a card, a win for Smith. It's a messy fight, and I didn't know the fight was available on Fight TV. Sky Sports, we don't have access to it here in the States, and I just didn't know that the fight was being shown on Fight TV. I actually subscribed to them, and they had the fight on there. So I just finished watching the fight, and really messy fight. I saw the reaction on everyone on social media. They were saying it's like one of the worst fights they've seen and all of that stuff. The fight was messy and the fight was bad because of the excessive holding of of Lawrence Okolie. But the crowd that seemed to be really, really into it, and it just wasn't that bad. It was actually exciting. It was probably the most exciting Lawrence Okolie fight, even though it's his loss. I mean, I've never seen him land that many flush right hands against anyone, and they didn't even go down once. I think he buzzed Smith a couple of times, but this guy was extremely durable. I mean, his style was a great style. Just coming forward with that high guard actually worked for him because Lawrence was just trying to punch through the card with the right hand mainly. Not many not looking for the openings, to the body and not really throwing anything around the guard. It kind of exposed Lawrence Okolie's weaknesses. Like we've seen it, we all knew that he was sort of one-dimensional because he's a great outside fighter, has a great jab, has a great right hand, but he needs to develop some sort of inside game. The inside game can't just be you holding. You're either, you know, long range, you're great. You know what I'm saying? You know how to take those quick step backs and shoot that jab and time and land the right hand and stay out of range. He's good at that, but he's either lunging in to hold or he punches you and then hold continuously. And these guys, especially guys that has experience, fighting and sparring with you, these guys are gonna figure you out at some point. And Smith did it. Kind of reminded me of Arthur Abraham and his style and how he used to just come straight forward with a high guard and walking through whatever you're throwing just to land those quick short shots on the inside. Also reminds me of Murat Gassiev. If Gassiev was fighting as a cruiser still at this time, I don't know what he's doing now. I know he's had a couple fights at heavyweight, but he's been very, very inactive since the loss of Usyk. I just don't think he has that spirit anymore. But he would have been a nightmare at cruiserweight for Lawrence Okolie with that style because he kind of just comes straight in and he throws those quick, powerful, hooks and stuff, those short shots on the inside for these longer ranger type of fighters. It's time that Lawrence really develop more of an inside game. He can't simply rely on distance because unfortunately, as good as he is, you gotta have some kind of defense outside of. He doesn't have the reflexes to get out of the way of the shots. Upper body movement, slipping and stuff. He doesn't have the reflexes to do it. It's just more like solely just staying outside of range by using his feet. And it's not going to be enough. You know what I mean? And we've seen it in the fights, but no one has really done well in really exposing that until now. What I will say is that Smith is extremely durable. You know what I mean? These other fighters are not going to go through that many punches from Lawrence Okolie and still keep coming forward like that. I think Smith did a great job. I mean, he didn't even really complain that much. He just he would look at the ref at times, but he stayed in the fight. And I like when a fighter does that. Like I've never seen him fight before, but he's gained a fan in me just because of the fact that even though Lawrence was doing all of that holding, he stayed on top of the assignment at hand and just kept coming forward. Not the worst fight to me, only because the crowd was really, really into it. You had a no bullshit referee. You know, that ref was on top of that holding stuff very, very early in the fight. And I don't even think the second knockdown should have been a knockdown, you know, because it wasn't a clean punch that landed. It's kind of like Lawrence leaned and fell into him. And I think at that time, the ref was just tired of Lawrence and his the clinching and stuff. I mean, he was just like locking up Smith throughout the fight. And I think at this point, he should work on developing that inside game. At this, now that you took a loss, you're not going to win and be successful your whole career with that style, especially now that you lost. It's not a loss that you can't come back from. It's the fact that people know how to beat you now. So now you really got to develop and step up your game, especially if you're going to have a rematch. I don't know if there's any kind of rematch clause in this fight. I know they were trying to build up to a Richard Riakporhe fight because, they had that little scuffle in one of the boxing events maybe months ago. I can't remember whose fight it was. I know it was out in Saudi Arabia or something like that. But with all that being said, Lawrence Okolie, I'm sure he's lost fans today. I'm sure that the people that's always criticized him are even criticizing him even more because not only did he lose the fight, but it seemed like the crowd was really, really into Smith simply because they were frustrated from the amount of holding he was doing. Now, as far as the scorecards, I didn't score it, right? I didn't actually score it because I already knew the outcome of the fight. And I wasn't looking at it to see, how the fight should have went. I kind of was looking at it to see what everybody was talking about today. I was just curious to see for myself about this horrible fight. I was literally seeing people on Twitter saying this is the worst fight they've seen. So I wanted to see how bad it was. And it was bad because of the amount of holding. But it looked like a street fight, to be honest. Because there was still a lot of clean punches that landed. And the crowd was really hyped into it. So I wasn't bored. It was just like I was annoyed for the amount of holding, but I was still entertained by it because there was so much drama involved, and that kept me into the fight. So overall, Lawrence, he asked, I don't know if they're gonna have a rematch, but he needs to work on his game. I don't know if he has to switch coaches or not, but he needs to just work simply on that inside game. You gotta develop it now. That's something that you're gonna have to do now that you took a loss. It's like AJ, he took the loss to Andy Ruiz, and what did he do? He made adjustments in his game leading into that rematch. People didn't like it, but it made him think and fight a certain way that would win specific fights for him. All right. And I think Lawrence, at this point, he's gonna have to develop that inside game a little bit better. It's not going to be overnight, but I don't know where he's going to go. But before you get back into these big fights as a champion on a championship level, you got to develop some kind of insight. The holding is not going to work. It's not going to work. And just you having that fighting outside of range is no different from the Lee Wood fight and Lara today. Lee Wood clearly needed to fight on the outside. You know what I'm saying? That was what it worked from, but he can mix it up on the inside. It wasn't his strength, but he knew how to hold his own on the inside. You know what I'm saying? Get some work in, put some work on the inside. Lawrence Okolie had nothing. It was just hold. I'm going to lunge in and hold you, or I'm going to hit and hold you. And it was continuous. And Smith just knew, especially the first knockdown, that beautiful left hook on the inside. That was a beautiful shot he landed, and that was that. But as far as scoring, going back to the scoring, it's very hard to really score the fight. I wasn't really that surprised at some of those close scorecards simply because I still think Lawrence Okolie was winning rounds because of the landed punches and because he was able to smother Smith. Even though I didn't like what he was doing, he was keeping Smith from hitting him. So a lot of those rounds he won. And then a lot, I think I mean, I didn't look at the actual scorecard and which rounds, I don't know. But what I do know is if you get a point or two taken away and you didn't win the round, it's still going to be a 9-9 round. And that's what makes it completely messy. But he got those 3 knockdowns in that helped Smith secure that win. All right, but they'll probably do a rematch. But even if they're going to go into a rematch, you got to develop your game. Like, that's not going to work. And then you're going to have these referees that they know what they're getting into. Even if it's not that guy, if it's another referee, they know what this kind of fight is going to be. And not every ref is going to allow you to just tie up and clinch that much. They're not going to let you do it. You're going to have to fight. And no matter how many times he was warned in this fight, he kept doing it. So it's time. You took a loss now. It's not the end of the world. You know what I mean? You're still a very, very good fighter, but you have to develop more skills in order to compete at this level. You know? You have to. You know, and in these fights, listen, I don't know what would have happened if he fought Richard Riakporhe. You know, I've seen people say, oh, he would have lost to Richard. You know, I don't know, because I don't know if Richard would have been able to take that amount of right hands too. You know, everybody's different. Everybody's styles are different. Styles make fights. And I don't know how all these other fighters would do, but I do know that now that you lost, people are going to look at this fight and say, okay, I know exactly how to beat him. You know what I mean? You just got to close in the distance and fight through the clinching. And, you know, the problem with Lawrence here and Smith did it, there were times that they were tied up, but Smith will, on a break, when they were separate, not the break, because I don't want to say the break with the ref, but there were times where Smith would step around him and start hitting him with hooks from different angles that Lawrence didn't see coming, because his back would be nearly turned, or Smith would be on the side of him, and it left him open to get hit with shots too. So overall, wild fight. Yes, it was a wild fight. I just saw it, so I had to make a quick video on it. I was gonna go live in the morning and just review all of the fights all together, but after watching it just now, I just had to jump on here and do some kind of content. So I think it's time for Lawrence to really step up his game. And that's all I really got to say about that moving forward. All right. So anyway, if you are new, please subscribe to the channel, smash the like button if you like the content, and I'll see you tomorrow morning with some more content. I'm going to get some rest. Peace.